Are you starting a nonprofit or a healing ministry or maybe a faith based coaching program and you're continuing to fund the vision out of your own pocket? If you're doing that, sister, I want you to stop doing that today. Because in this episode, we're talking about how you can fund the vision that God has given you and you don't have to continue funding it out of your pocket. Welcome, sister, to our weekly Sister Start Your Ministry Hour, where we talk about all things faith, ministry, and kingdom business. I am your coach. I am the host of this hour, and I love gathering together with women just like you who know that you're called to build a transformative ministry beyond the walls of the church. Now, if you're a first timer, welcome, sister. I'm glad that you are here, and I want to invite you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, I want to give you a free gift. You can actually get a ministry launch starter kit at sisterstartyourministry.com. And this kit is designed to help you to build that ministry beyond the walls of the church, helping you to organize, get revenue for your ministry, figure out how to market your ministry, and a bunch of other fun things are there at this site, all for free. So write down sisterstartyourministry.com. I also want you to invite you to really quickly text a girlfriend or two if you know that they're trying to start a kingdom business or start a ministry because they want to be on this episode, particularly if they're looking for how to get funding for that kingdom business. Now, my regulars already know the drill. They're already filling up the comments for us. This is what we do every week. We take roll call where you say your name and where you're watching from. Even if you're watching the replay, I want to know that you're here because I respond personally to every single comment. I will be live once again with you this week in the comments, interacting with you. And let's blow up the comments today, particularly around this topic, because this is something that I'm very familiar with, sisters. For the first year or two, when I was starting my kingdom business, and mind you, I had left my full-time job to answer this call because I knew that God was calling me to build something beyond the walls of the church. But in that first year, things were a little bit foggy for me on how my ministry would look. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people to heal. But at the time, I didn't really have a clear funding model, let alone a business plan. So what was happening was I was spending a whole bunch of money out of my pocket. I was charging, on my personal cards. I was just doing all the things wrong. And I'm like looking like, oh man, I'm using up all my savings. I don't have like a clear business plan. I don't know what I'm doing. And so it took a while for me to finally realize this is not sustainable. You're going to have to get another job to fund this vision that you're doing because you're spending money without a clear revenue model. And thankfully, over the years, I actually invested in coaching. I got some support and I was able to go from like all over the place to building a national Christian trauma healing business. And we serve people across the country. I also now am able to serve women just like you and offer coaching to help you to not make the same mistakes that I have made. But what I've learned is when you're getting started, whether you are looking to have a nonprofit, a for profit, or maybe you're at a stage where you're like, I don't even know what it's going to be. It's okay. One of the things that you want to think about before you fully get started is what is my revenue model? This is part of the business plan development process. And here's the thing, I'm just going to say this really quickly. Even though we are creating a faith-based business or ministry, you still want to have a kingdom business plan. You still want to have a model in place for you to sustain the vision because resources are needed for you to serve those who you are called to. So part of your kingdom business plan development process is determining what your revenue model is going to be. And there's a number of ways in which you can do this. And one of the questions that I'm going to encourage you to ask yourself is, who are you called to serve? This is really relevant as it relates to when determining your revenue model, because depending on who you're called to serve, it'll like really play a difference in determining what revenue model makes the most sense. Because if you are someone who is supporting individuals who cannot pay for your services. Maybe you are serving the unhoused, and or maybe domestic violence survivors who are leaving an abusive situation. They're at a stage where most likely they can't pay for services. So you still have to pay the mortgage for the shelter. You still have to pay for staff. There's still things you have to consider. So funding is still required. You just know that you're not going to be able to charge the recipient of the services, the beneficiaries of the services. That's going to be a different funding model in comparison to you serving clients who live in an affluent community who's looking to transition careers, or working with individuals who have the capacity to pay for your services. Think about this, because if you don't have this established first, then you won't really have clarity on which funding model makes sense. So put for me in the comments right now, who are you thinking about serving? Are you thinking about serving individuals who actually can pay for the services? Or are you thinking about serving individuals who cannot? They're beneficiaries of it, but you're going to have a different funding model for that. All right. So once you determine that, let's look at some of the different ways in which you can generate income for those who you're called to serve. First, you can do so by offering products. Products, whether it's physical or digital, can be a way for you to generate income in a variety of ways. Now, products are one in which you do want to do a little bit of research, but it could be something as simple as your first book. This is something where there's a number of authors here. You might write a book, and then you might have a companion guide that you have with the book, a journal, maybe a box set. One of my products that I offer that you can find at, let me put shameless plug, sisterstartyourministry.com. You can get a ministry line starter kit. Those are my products where you can get my book, my workbook, my planner, my journal. And those are things that help those who I'm called to serve as an entry level offer, but it also helps to generate income. That's a physical product, but there's other things that you might be able to do where it's more so something where it's print on demand. That way you don't have a whole bunch of inventory. It's just printed when people order it. And that's something where you can generate a little income from that. And that's a smaller source of income, but it can add up. But don't sleep on the digital products. This is something where for some, it might make sense for you to design a course. Maybe you have, some resources or digital packages or things that you offer that is in a digital format that people can use. There are digital planners, and that's something I'm like, oh, wow, that's very cool. So depending on your level of technology, you might consider creating a digital product to help generate income. I've also seen this happen before on the physical product side. I interviewed some time ago the founder of Our Grows House, and Our Grows House is located in Iowa, and they serve domestic violence survivors. And the way they have their model set up to help offset some of their expenses is they employ the domestic violence survivors to create bath and body products. The domestic violence survivors then sell the products, and that helps to first employ the survivors, but it also helps to fund the mission. And people are much more likely to want to support your products and buy a candle, buy bath and body products if they know it's for a good cause. So maybe that's something that can also work for your model as a way to generate income. But another thing that you can also offer is services. Think about what services you might offer, whether it is doing training, maybe it's doing consulting, maybe it's doing some type of teaching or resources that you offer based on your gifts. Maybe you know how to design, maybe you know how to make things for other people. I don't know what your services are, but services are things that you can do to generate income. One of the services that we offer is we coach women to help them to start their ministries. And through coaching, that is a service. It is from a faith-based biblical lens, but we are serving people. Here's the thing though, with your services, you just want to make sure that you are pricing it effectively. This is another conversation and another teaching. But one of the things that I think oftentimes as Christian women we struggle with is undervaluing our services and not pricing it appropriately based on the hours, the time, the expertise. And so understanding that even though it is a faith-based organization, if you have a for-profit model, particularly, this is for those who are doing something like you're doing training, you're doing speaking, you're leading workshops, you're offering a service. Even as a woman of faith, we have to understand that if we're offering something of value, we want to make sure we price it appropriately, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain what you're doing from a place of excellence. But offering some type of service of value to those who you're called to serve, again, depending on your model, is a way to generate income. Another way in which, and this is more so for those of us who are on the for-profit side, but it also can be on the nonprofit side too, is licensing your curriculum. Yes, for some of us, you have intellectual property, you have created a model, you teach, you train other people, and it's one in which you're getting to the point where you're thinking about life balance. You don't want to be on a plane. You don't want to have to travel and teach and speak all the time. You want to be able to set things up where you have income coming in over the course of time and you're not having to be everywhere. This is something where you might consider licensing your curriculum, where you might allow others to use it. You put together the model, the framework, your intellectual property, but it's very clear that it's yours. And then you assign a fee for people to use your curriculum, to use whatever your training module is for a certain period of time. You might license this in schools and organizations for others to be able to teach. And this is a way for you to generate income for what you've created. Now, you want to make sure that you consult someone who's a professional around this to make sure that you protect your work. But I've seen people create this in such a way where it allows for them to be able to make impact even if they're not in the space. Because again, life balance, it matters. But maybe it's one of those things where you might want to generate some income through referrals. And it could be someone who, a referral to a company where you don't even know the people per se, but you know the service. Let me give you an example. Have you ever watched a YouTube video or like watched a podcast? Because we can actually watch video podcasts. And they, during the middle of the podcast, they'll shift into saying, well, I am drinking this new beverage, this vitamin drink. Oh, it's fantastic. It has all the B12 vitamins and blah, 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 blah. And then they just kind of turn it into some like infomercial. And you're like, okay, cool. And then they're like, buy now, get 10% off using my link below. And you're like, okay. And honestly, people pay, like companies pay for individuals to refer, and they'll give them a special link. And anytime someone buys through that special link, then they get a kickback for that. So think about that as a way to generate income for what you're doing for your podcast, to get sponsors, to have an affiliate link even for your blogs that you're writing, or whatever you're doing from a standpoint of marketing materials. Anytime you refer to a company, check to see if this software company has a affiliate link so you can get a kickback for that referral. A lot of us do it like naturally, say, hey, I'm using this software. I like this. I like this. Think about all the things that you like, that you use for your business, that you approve of, that you think are in alignment with your values. Get an affiliate link. And then when you are blogging, when you're doing your podcast, when you're doing your social media, if you give them a shout out, tell people to use the link. And that can be kickback for your organization in a way to create some good passive income. Another way in which you can look at generating income is hosting events, whether this is online or in person. So these events are a great way to generate buzz and notoriety for your business. I love online, but also in person is quite powerful. When I think about online, particularly, people became more comfortable with it when we went into COVID. Y'all know about that. Like, I mean, we were all Zooming our whole life away. And in that, that's one of those things where webinars and workshops online and master classes became popular. And it's one of those things you can host a virtual event and you can charge for that, or you can host a free event as a way to then invite people to learn more about your services and maybe book a call afterwards. But virtual events are a great way for you to generate some buzz and even income for your business if you charge a fee. But also in person conferences, workshops, events can be a great way for both marketing and generating some revenue. Once again, though, sisters, one of the things that many of us can, struggle with, and you can put this in the comments if this is you, because this has definitely been something that I've had to work through, is when you're hosting the event, let's move away from flying by the seat of our pants without a budget. If you are hosting an event, before you spend a dime, I want you to write down the hard numbers, looking at, all right, what is the cost of the venue if you're doing it in person? What is the cost for marketing? Do I have to pay for staffing? Do I have to pay for food? Factoring all these costs, because what I see sometimes we just come up with a number saying, all right, I'm going to charge $125 for this conference. Okay, like, how much is this thing going to cost you? Like, are you going to have to pay for AV and videography, all these things? Because we work the numbers and we see, okay, it's going to cost me altogether about, you know, $5,000. I'm just throwing out a number for this example to cover all of these expenses. All right, that means in order for me to even just break even, I have to have this much in ticket sales, this much in sponsorship. You have to have all these things in place. And if you haven't worked out the numbers, what you can end up doing is footing the bill on the back end. So we have to start with a budget first. And we also have to make sure before we set our ticket price, we look at, okay, are we going to, from this event, are we going to have a certain number of sponsors? All right, to offset the ticket cost. All right, at this event, how are we going to leverage this event to bring in more money? Is it something where you're using this event to raise awareness about your cause, but you're also getting donors in the room, people who can write them checks? Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like they can write the checks to donate for your cause, or maybe there's some people who are influencers and you're going to ask them to pledge. What are you going to do to make sure that you're leveraging this event? And if it's not for a nonprofit, then okay, maybe you want to use this event as an opportunity to let people know about your coaching program or your services. But you're not just thinking about, okay, the event itself. Anytime you have an event, you want to think about, where am I leading people to next from this event? Because otherwise, an event not fully leveraged is a sad thing. You put all this effort into it. You're planning for 3, 4, 5 months not to do the ask for the donations or to invite people to join your community or learn more about your cause. So think about your budget and what does success look like, and make sure that when you do these events, you fully optimize them. All right. Next, grants. All right, let's talk about some grants. Now, this is one of those things where it's a misnomer that grants are only for people who have a nonprofit. How many of you have thought that? Be honest. No, no, no. You can get a grant as a for-profit organization. Right now, my company, Faith on the Journey, is actually set up as a for-profit structure, and we've been a beneficiary of grants, and we've been so through actual partnerships. Now, that's just one way, but I've partnered with a nonprofit and they subcontracted my agency to be able to do trauma healing work. And that was a great partnership where it really helped fund my agency for 3 years. So think about strategic partnerships that you can get for grants, but also you can be a LLC, if you will, and still get like small business grants. You can get seed grants, like seed, where they help you to start up your organization. And so there's funding available for any business structure you have. You just have to do the research. And some grants, again, are meant for startup organizations, but they're going to want to see certain things like your budget. They're going to want to see that you're organized and you're kind of thinking through your process, because they want to make sure that whoever they're giving money to is going to be a return, if you will, on investment, even if it's a return, meaning you're going to create impact. But understand that you can qualify for grants. You just want to kind of position yourself and kind of learn the ropes of the trade. So this might be you attending a grant writing workshop. You might join a small business association just to learn more. And over time, the main thing is just actually writing the grants. And maybe you can partner with someone who is a little bit stronger in that area. If you're like a little bit nervous, there's people out there who can offer those services, but you just want to vet them. Not everybody who says they know how to write a grant really can. And I think also one of the things I will mention, if you are familiar with AI technology, AI can help you with kind of cultivating your grant narrative and helping you to kind of get your ideas on paper. But understand that grant writing and submitting grants can be a great part of your revenue business model. Now, I will deter you or suggest that you don't make grants 100% of your model. I used to run a nonprofit for about a decade. And one of the things that happened is at some point in our process, we became so dependent on grant funds. And it was a scary time at certain points where we had a change in administration. And then the government, whoever was in office at the time, was like, yeah, sorry, we're cutting this whole department. You have to lay off. I had to lay off like 3 people coming in from out of town. The next day I landed back in town, I had to cut a third of my staff. It was very hard. And that was because we were so dependent on grants. This is why you want to diversify your funding streams. You want to think about, okay, I have maybe 30 to 40% through grants. We have donations that we get in from people. We have our annual fundraiser. We have our services and our products. That way, that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, is the case. So if, there is a change in government administration, you're still in a good place to be able to generate the income that you're looking for. All right. We also, going back to donations, thinking about donations is one in which you want to think about various ways in which you can generate income at different levels, because of course, all of us would love to just have someone come in and write $100,000 check. Sign me up, right, for our cause. But most of us ain't got it like that coming out the door. So let's think about, all right, are there ways in which we can get revenue coming in where people can donate a pledge that is almost like it's something so small that they don't think about it, like $1 a day. How many of us, we think about our routine between maybe 7 and 9 a.m., we see the same reoccurring expense coming out of our bank account. For some of us, we have a coffee addiction we don't even like to admit. And if we were to just reallocate those funds elsewhere, then we might be able to scramble up $1 a day to go towards a cause. And people could consider doing that if it was positioned the right way. And so you can have something set up where you have a campaign for $1 a day, or which is $30 a month, which adds up to $365 a year. And that's something that you get enough people. Now you have a base of recurring donations coming in. And this is something, if you can quantify the change, let people know what the dollars that they're donating are going for, saying, hey, your pledge, your subscription helps to fund tutoring for a child for a month, or funds this dance program, or helps with education, or helps whatever cost. Think about what it does. But people want to know, again, that there's a return on investment, even if it's not ROI into their account. They want to know that their money is making a difference. So show them how. Be able to show them that you're a good steward over the resources that they give. Now, for some, it might make sense, similar on what I was saying for the $1 a day donation. On the flip side, it is a beautiful thing if you have a for-profit to have a subscription or membership model. Thinking about, okay, if you offer a service to people, maybe it's like a group coaching program, maybe it's like certain resources that people pay for once a month, maybe it's an online community, but it could be something as a small membership model where it's like $49 a month. It could be $99 a month. It could be hundreds of dollars. I've seen membership communities for masterminds where it's thousands of dollars a month. It depends on what you offer and the tiers of services. But thinking about what would it look like if you had 100 people all paying you $100 a month. Having that reoccurring income can make a huge difference if you're able to set something up of value where you're able to invite people to be a part of your membership community. It takes time to build, and you want to again think about, who am I serving? What needs do they have? What problem can I solve? And in doing so, if you can create a solution where people want to be a part of that and people crave community, this is something where it can absolutely be a great way to generate income for your business or your ministry. Now, I blew through this extremely fast, and I know you might still have some questions or things that you want to learn. So I want to share with you a couple resources that you have available beyond just our time together today. I actually did a full hour workshop on helping you to start a ministry-driven business, is what I like to call it. And in this workshop, we cover some of the ways you can generate income, but we also talk about your organizational structure, how to get started, how to really launch. It is such meat in this workshop that I put together. So if you have not seen that, I actually have the link in the show notes for you to watch. Click on that. Sister, it was probably one of the best hours you can spend on helping you to move forward. But for some of you, like, okay, yes, I'm going to watch the workshop, but I also want to sit down and talk with you. Like, I need to stop charging my card. I need to generate some income for this business. I want to talk to someone to help me to figure out my next step. If that's you, then you can also schedule a breakthrough session. Let's sit down one-on-one, talk about the vision that God has given you, what you've been working on, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what's your next step, and how we can create a plan to help you to really move this business, this vision, this ministry forward. I would love to spend time with you, learn about what the Lord has put on your heart. And so go to rebjocelyn.com/breakthrough-session to schedule your one-on-one. Many of the sisters who are watching now have had that session, and it's a great way for us to connect and really help you to take your next most faithful step. So thank you, ladies, for hanging out with me today. It's always a joy. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and share this with a friend who you know is looking to generate some income for her ministry or her kingdom business. Thank you again for tuning in. I can't wait to see you again for another episode of our Sister Start Your Ministry Hour. And I will see you next week, sisters. God bless.